Hey dudes, welcome to the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Film Competition. My name is Chris Morocco, and this is Designing the Audio Experience. In this class, we're going to learn how to add backgrounds and off-screen sound effects to take the bland sounds that you got from on set, just straight from your camera or whatever, and add a ton of spices and flavor to it and make it much, much more exciting. But before we get started, I think it's really important that we take a moment to go over to our whiteboard and explain what is post-production sound. Post-production sound is made up of dialogue, music, sound effects, and backgrounds. So how do we create all these sounds? With dialogue, we either record on set or during post-production in the form of voiceover, ADR, breaths, efforts, stuff like that. And dialogue is almost always mono. Music is usually created in stereo by a composer, and it is called the score. But music can also come from a library. If there is music coming from a source in your film, well then it's called source music, and that is mono. Sound effects most notably come from pre-recorded libraries, but often you have to roll up your sleeves and record custom Foley sounds. Sometimes you'll get lucky and record a great sound on set. These are called PFX or production sound effects. Sound effects are often mono, but sometimes can be stereo. Same rules apply to backgrounds. Usually you'll find them in a sound library, but remember, backgrounds are almost always stereo. And once we have all of these sounds, we group them together in stems. So we end up with a dialogue stem, a music stem, and an FX stem. So let's talk some more about the difference between mono and stereo. Mono is one track, recorded with one microphone. Stereo is two tracks, recorded with two microphones, and has a left and a right. So what sound goes where? Think of it like this. If a sound is being created in the environment of your film, like a door closing or footsteps, then that sound should be mono. We do this because our dialogue is also mono, and we want our sound effects to match and feel like they are coming from the same place. If a sound is creating the environment, like a bed of crickets or a desert wind, then that sound should be stereo. We do this in order to build the ambient sounds around our mono dialogue. So now that we know the difference between mono and stereo, let's talk about the difference between sound effects and backgrounds. The biggest thing to remember is a background can only be considered a background if it exists for the entire scene, whereas a sound effect only happens for a part of the scene. Sound effects are often mono, whereas backgrounds are almost always stereo. Sound effects can sweeten an existing sound. Sound effects can be realistic or impressionistic. And sound effects can happen on or off screen. Backgrounds, on the other hand, are usually off-screen ambient sounds. Backgrounds establish time and place and help keep a scene smooth and consistent. Think crickets at night and birds during the day. Often, Foley and library sounds are meant to be realistic. A glass bottle breaking, a car horn honking, a door closing, etc. However, some sound effects like a low rumble that can create anxiety for the audience or tinnitus that happens after a character survives an explosion do not exist in the environment, but they do contribute to the overall emotion of the film. Here are some examples. Okay, so let's put our knowledge to the test and take a little hike in this beautiful forest. Let me just get ready here. Okay. My voice will be the dialogue of the scene. Now, let's put a little woodpecker somewhere out there. Yeah, that's cool, right there. Okay. Maybe every once in a while we hear an owl. Maybe a coyote way, way off in the distance. Okay, yep, I'm liking that. What about a gentle wind? Let's get some birds chirping. And you know what? Maybe even some cicadas. And right off screen, we have a babbling brook. Maybe even some light water splashes from the lake. Maybe a duck just swam by. We'll have him quack every once in a while. And now all that's left is some outro music. Okay, great. So hopefully that gives you a much better idea of what post-production sound is. For now, we're going to ignore the dialogue and music stems, and we're going to focus on only the FX stem. Specifically, we're going to add backgrounds and off-screen sound effects. So let's take it away. Hey, who's that guy? He looks pretty cool. Hey, what's up, buddy? Let's get started on the first part of the scene and add our first sound. So you'll notice that I'm using Pro Tools, which is the industry standard for post-production sound, but you don't have to do that. As long as you're following along with these concepts, you can do it in any software that you would like. So all I'm going to do first is just import a sound. So here we go. Ambient city traffic looks good to me. I'm going to convert or copy that into my audio files folder. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to process the audio, and I'll just put it on a new track. Great. I'm going to expand this view a little bit so I can see a little more what's going on. And then I'm just going to relabel this track to BG1. This is my first background. I'm feeling fancy, so I'm going to give it a nice greeny color like that. I'm going to go ahead and just find a nice spot for this to start. So this seems a little loud right here. Maybe I'll just use this area over here. Bring it back. And I just want to make sure it's going to go across my whole scene. So I can kind of just clip it like that. Add a couple of fades at the end. And let's check it out. So already sounding a lot better. It's a little loud, so all I'm going to do is just adjust the clip gain by bringing this down. Let's say to minus 12 or something like that. Cool. So the key thing here, if we remember from the video we just watched, is that I added a stereo background across the whole scene. So I had mono recordings from what I captured on my phone for this scene, and now I'm going to start building that, audio experience around us with the stereo sounds that we're going to add now. So let's keep going. So birdies are always a good background, so I'll copy those in. Call this my BG2, and I'll just pick a part of the track that looks good, swing it on over. Make my cuts. Again, I'm not focusing too much on technical stuff today, just the concepts of things. That still might be a little loud. Cool, now we got our birdies and our traffic. Sounding really good, so let's add one more. It is my recommendation to do at least 3 backgrounds per scene. If you're feeling fancy, you can do 6 or 9 or 12. You can really stop wherever you want. Just make sure you're telling the story. You should never be adding backgrounds or sounds for no reason, as long as it's helping set up the time, place, space, birdies in the daytime, crickets at night, that kind of thing. Then you're good to go to keep adding them. Oh, this one's neat. So we have wind in trees. That's a common wind. I love winds. Desert wind is my favorite wind. There's cold mountain air, all kinds of stuff. But let's do wind through trees, like it's blowing through some of the neighborhood trees. Okay, so we found our clip. Sounds good. It is good. Okay, so we got our 3 in there, but you know what? I'm feeling so good and I feel like I want to add another one. So let's do it. I have one more traffic track. This one's a medium traffic. Cool. So let's just listen to our backgrounds now. And if you have headphones on, you'll hear the stereo-ness of the tracks. It sounds really good. He agrees. Cool. So we can contrast that against what it sounds like with no backgrounds. So very mono and center, not very big and robust. Not really a lot going on. And then again, we can just listen to everything together. So awesome. That's a big difference between what we had straight out of the camera and what we were able to add. So let's move on to some off-screen sound effects. So this one's kind of cool. I'm going to copy it into my session and we'll check it out. So let's call this FX1. I like to give either an orange or a yellow color for my effects. Kind of a cool little effect, like a car is passing by playing their radio super loud. So let's maybe save that towards the end of the scene. I've just turned it down a little bit. And this one is not going to be a background, right? It's going to be a sound effect, so it's not across the whole scene. So I'm just using it for a little portion there. Great. Let's grab another sound effect. Maybe we want to show a little bit of danger this time and add a siren, for example. This is going to play into the scene a little bit. When it comes together, you'll see what we're trying to do. Okay, so here's a siren. So maybe we can start it like this, fade it up like that, fade it down like that. We're going to be pretty distant, so let's do something like that. And you know what? Let's start the scene with some dogs barking. You know, show this is like a residential area. Let's see what we got. Here we go. Doggies. Copy that in there. But let's just say maybe just for the first little part of it here. So I'm just looking at the waveforms and doing my best to kind of just rough everything in. And let's see. Maybe a car alarm in the distance too. That sounds pretty good. So you see how you can just really just keep adding layers and layers and layers, and you can just keep putting things in different places, basically. So maybe as the siren's going by, the car alarm picks up, not be for the whole time, just for a little bit. Cool. So I'm going to just add one more thing. The sound of this actual car going by. So sometimes what's really good, you know, we did talk about off-screen sound effects, but sometimes you want to sweeten an existing sound effect that's on screen. I have the sound of a car going by, or a car by. It's actually commonly referred to that in sound effect libraries. And what I can do is maybe just cut right into the middle of it like that. I know it seems funky for now, but we'll find exactly that place, the sort of midpoint of exactly where we want it to be at full volume. And I can pull it back out like that. Clean it up. So there we go. We added 4 BGs and 5 sound effects so far. And I think that the scene is starting to sound so much better. Okay, so I just wanted to stop here for a minute and say, we haven't done anything fancy to this project at all. No heavy plugins, no heavy mixing, nothing. All we've done is added some stereo backgrounds and some sound effects, and look at what we were able to accomplish. We took something that was recorded on the phone and we've added all these sounds, and now it sounds like a real movie, and we really built out this environment and designed the audio experience. And because of the progress that we made, I'm so excited, and I want to add some bonus techniques. So let's jump into a couple more things right now. So you may have noticed from the scene, I'm thinking about something right here. I wonder what I'm thinking about. Well, I went ahead and recorded a voiceover, so let's check it out. There sure is a lot of pressure to get this right. What if I don't get it right? Wait, what if I mess something up? What if I can't explain designing the audio experience the right way? Okay, so we have the recording of the inner monologue that's going to play in my head during that moment when I'm acting worried on the screen, but we're going to add reverb to it, and it's going to sound even more like it's swirling around in my head. So all we got to do is go to the insert section of whatever software you're using, plug in reverb. You'll see I have a pretty good collection of reverbs, but I'm just going to use this Studio Reverb because it has a very fun preset on it called Grand Canyon. Now, all this is just a very large verb. You might see something like cathedral or large hall or something like that. It's the same idea. All reverb is the art of bouncing off a source and then coming back to us. So unlike a delay or an echo, 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 that repeats the same information, this is just sound bouncing off of a source and coming back to us. In this case, it's the Grand Canyon that it's modeled after. So it's a really cool, big, fun effect. So let's check it out. There sure is a lot of pressure to get this right. What if I don't get it right? Wait, what if I mess something up? Now, most verb programs will have something like a mix or a dry and wet knob. So wet being heavy reverb, dry meaning no reverb. So if that sounded a little bit too much, there sure is a lot of pressure to get this right. What if I don't get it right? Wait, what if I mess something up? What if I can't explain designing the audio experience the right way? Cool. So you heard me turn it up and down. I dial it in. I'm happy there. But, something's still missing. So let's go to another technique that we can do. Cool. So I want to add some contrast to this moment now. So all of the other sounds and backgrounds and stuff like that, maybe they go away for a minute or get a little bit more quiet, and then I'm going to add a new background in its place. I got this kind of interesting underwater sound. It's going to kind of represent the stress and anxiety I'm going through. I'm feeling like I'm underwater. And then we're going to have it fade in sort of like as I'm starting to think and get concerned. And then I'm just going to do some mixing techniques here. Or basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the volume down on the backgrounds during these parts. I'm just going to use some keyframing. Again, you can do this however you're used to in whatever software that you're working in. But I'm just going to make a volume move like that. And then I'm just going to copy it to my other tracks. I just want to add one more little sound to make it feel like we are sort of snapping back to reality. The classic way to do this is by reversing a sound. It's often done with a cymbal crash of a drum kit, for example. But one thing I like to do is take it one step further and actually add an explosion and then reverse that. So let's check that out. In Pro Tools, you'll go to Audio Suite, Other, Reverse, Render, bada boom, there it is. Turn this down just a little bit in case it's too spicy. And I think I'm going to pick the moment right when the scene sort of flips over. So there it is there. There's my marker. I'll just snap it to that moment. Now we have an exact point where we want this to end. We're working, we're making progress, we're thinking, we're creating new things. Cool, that's really exciting. All right, let's screen our movie. There sure is a lot of pressure to get this right. What if I don't get it right? Wait, what if I mess something up? What if I can't explain designing the audio experience the right way? No, wait a minute, I got this. All right, awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you use these techniques on all of your upcoming projects. Just to recap quickly, we added stereo backgrounds, sound effects, and we did a bonus section where we added reverb to a voice to create an inner monologue. We reversed an explosion to get us out of that inner monologue and back to the real world, and we added an impressionistic underwater rumble sound at that moment of anxiety to really bring home the point of how worried I was in that moment. And that's it. There's nothing left to say, but later, dudes.